Good evening, everyone, and welcome to week 6 of Go Healthy. I hope everybody's had a good start to the week so far. As you can see, if you are turning in your trackers, which are optional, uh, definitely the sixth one would be due today. As usual, I do have everyone's mic on mute, so you can always unmute your mic if you have questions or comments. Of course, I have the chat feature available as well for any comments or questions. Okay. Well, we will go ahead and get started today. What we're going to do today is we'll start off like we do every week, discussing the success that you had from last week's action steps. We will then get to the topic of the day. And if you do recall, uh, this topic is not in your program booklet, but I think it's very important to go over this topic. So if you do recall, I think it was last Friday, I did email everyone information on reading food labels from the FDA and also that interactive tool. So hopefully you had a chance to look over that. Plus, it's going to get into a lot more detail on reading food labels than what we will today. But specifically, with food labels, we're going to describe the purposes and the requirement of the food label. We're going to give an overview of how to read a food label. And then I'll just show you quickly that interactive nutrition facts label. We'll then assign the week's action steps. We'll introduce next week's topic and then next week's Go Healthy tracker, and then answer any questions that you might have. Okay. All right. So last week, if you do remember, we talked about the calorie density of food, which, if you do recall, the definition of calorie density is the amount of calories found in a certain weight or volume of food. So your action step was to consume more of those low calorie dense foods and beverages, and then limit those high calorie dense foods and beverages. One way you can see that is using that guide to smart food choices. Those green are those anytime foods, and those yellow or portion control foods would be more of those lower calorie dense foods. Whereas as you get to that occasional or red column, those are your high calorie dense foods and beverages. Okay. So again, these are examples that we showed last week, like a Granny Smith apple and a donut having the same weight or volume, but they're different in calorie content and nutritional value. You can see the Granny Smith apple is considered a low calorie dense food, where that donut is considered a high calorie dense food. Same thing with beverages. A low calorie dense beverage, actually 0 calories, is water. Whereas if you have a sugary Coke or soft drink, that's considered a high calorie dense beverage. So, my question is, do you have an example of swapping in a low calorie dense food or beverage and then swapping out a high calorie dense food or beverage? Does anybody have an example of that since we met last week? So, do you have an example of swapping in a low calorie dense food or beverage and then swapping out a high calorie dense food or beverage? Again, you can send the chat.
Um, I've been drinking skim milk instead of 2% or whole milk.
Okay. Yeah. That's a lower calorie dense food or beverage compared to the 2% or the whole. Yeah. So if you did the same volume or ounces, you compared the two, the fat-free milk is going to be a lot lower calorie dense than the whole milk or 2%. Yes. Good example. Thank you. Plus, that's a My Plate tip for your dairy products. Move to low fat to fat free. Anyone else with an example? Okay, yeah. So Jim, what Jim did, he swapped in cauliflower and swapped out the mashed potatoes. So he did a cauliflower mashed potatoes. And yes, that would definitely be a lower calorie dense option than the mashed potatoes. Anyone else? Okay. All right. Well, thank y'all for chiming in on that. And if a cat, that was a train, by the way. I live by a train. If you heard that. Uh, So, if you do have an example, and if you drop it in the chat, and if it pops up, I will grab it as it comes through. Okay. So let's go ahead and get to your topic of the day, and that's reading food labels. We'll first on this slide show you the purposes and then the requirement of the food labels. And in the next slide, we're actually going to take a food label and just see how to read or decode that. Let me say, I'm just seeing something what Ted wrote, and y'all can probably see it. He said he looked at a food label this week. I sometimes buy these Tina's Big Burritos from the neighborhood Walmart. I was shocked to see the number of calories for just one burrito, which is 760. Yeah, and that's where, looking at food labels will help you make informed choice and decision about what you're consuming. Okay, so yeah, thank you. So the purposes here of food labels is to make quick, informed decisions to help you choose healthy foods and beverages. So just like Ted said, he looked at that and it made him make an informed decision and really shocked him how many calories are in that one burrito. Okay. And a lot of times for a lot of people, they can eat more than that one burrito. And if they were to eat two burritos, they're getting over 1,500 calories just in that one sitting. So, yeah, a purpose of food labels is to make that quick, informed decision to help choose healthier foods and beverages. Also, another purpose, it provides you facts or nutrients that impact common health concerns such as weight control, diabetes, and hypertension. And the example of the food label that we're going to show you shortly are the nutrients that are required to be on the food label. That's the minimum requirement. And of course, manufacturers can add additional nutrients to that if they want to. Okay, so you will see that shortly. All right. Also, food labels are required to be on all packaged foods and beverages. So, any food or beverage that has been changed from its original state must have a food label on it. Now, it's not required to be on raw produce like whole fruits and vegetables and fresh fish. Okay. Um, which now is going to take us to reading a food label. Now, as I go along, if you have questions, definitely drop it in the chat or you can unmute your mic, okay? Also, like I said earlier, hopefully you had a chance, or if you even didn't have a chance, you can go back, look at that information I sent you last Friday. One is from the FDA, which is Understanding Food Labels, and it's going to go into more depth of what we're going to talk about today. It's a great source of information. Okay. So, this is an example, just a food label. I don't know exactly what this food label is, what type of food, but everything you see right here on this food label are all the nutrients required to be listed on a food label. Now, like I said earlier, manufacturers can add additional stuff to this. For example, they can add more vitamins and minerals to the food label. They can, if they want to, under total fat, they can list the healthy types of fats, which are mono and polyunsaturated fats. They can add that if they want to. Also, under dietary fiber, if a manufacturer wants to tell you the two types of dietary fiber, it can flush it out. So, again, what you see here are the minimum requirements, the nutrients to be listed on that food label, because these are the ones that impact your health. So, when you see this food label here, this nutrition facts panel, all of this information you see on this label is based on one single serving. If you were to consume 2 servings of this food item, then you've got to double all of those numbers. Okay. So all of this information is only based on one serving. Now, from this example here, you can see there are 8 servings in this one container. Now, the serving size is 2/3 of a cup, 2/3 of a cup, just for one serving. All right. Now, you see that they also are required to put the amount of calories in one serving. And the amount of calories in 2/3 of a cup, that one serving, is 2 calories. Okay, so they're required to put that there. So you can see there, I was a little behind. Number one, they are required to put that serving information. Number two, they are required to put the amount of calories per serving. Again, if you were to eat a second serving of this, you double those calories. So that would be 460 calories if you were to eat a second serving of that. Also, there is a general rule of thumb you can use as far as what's considered a high calorie option, a moderate calorie option, and a low calorie option. You can see here it says, as a general rule, 100 calories per serving of an individual packaged food is considered a moderate amount of calories, meaning that you need to control the portion still, whereas 400 calories or more per serving of an individual packaged food is considered a really high amount of calories. Therefore, you definitely have to control portions. If not, maybe look for a similar item that has less calories. Okay, now it's not listed on here as a general guide, but I will tell you 40, so 40 calories per serving of an individual packaged food is considered to be a low calorie food. So 40 low, 100 moderate, 400 really high. Okay, so when you get to that 100 calorie range and higher, think about portion. As the number keeps rising, think about a different food that can help lower those calories and keeping you in your range. Okay, so the third important thing to know on reading a food label is the nutrients. Okay, so the nutrients here, which is the total fat. Under the total fat, they're required to put that harmful saturated fat. They're required to put that harmful trans fats, which, by the way, those have been manufacturers have been really banned from including those unhealthy trans fats. You'll typically see them as 0 grams. Also, it's required to put cholesterol in there. It's required to put sodium. It's required to put total carbohydrates. Within those total carbohydrates, they're required to put the dietary fiber, the total sugars. Now, the total sugars include both your naturally occurring sugars that you find in fresh fruits and dairy products, and it also includes that added sugars. But they are required to flush out how many of those total sugars are the added sugars, which are the things you want to reduce in your diet as much as possible. And then also it's required to put how much protein is in that serving as well. Also, it's required to put 1 vitamin and 3 minerals, which is vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. It's required to put that in there. Okay, so those are the minimum nutrients that are required. Now, this number 4 is really how you can make a very quick, informed choice in reading a food label. Okay, So it's called the Quick Guide to Percent Daily Value. So a percent daily value shows how much of a nutrient in one serving of the food contributes to a daily diet of 2,000 calories. Now, a 2,000 calorie diet is used for general nutrition advice. And it actually tells you that at the bottom of the food label about that. Okay. Now, what you want to do when you're reading the food label, you want to use the percent daily value that you see that I have outlined in purple to choose products, to compare foods and to choose products that are higher in nutrients that you want to get more of and lower in nutrients that you want to get less of. So, as a general rule of thumb, you want to use that 5%, 20% daily value. So, if you're looking here, nutrients that you want to get less of in your diet would be the saturated fat, would be the sodium, would be the added sugars, and I would also throw in that cholesterol. Those are the nutrients that you want to get less of in your diet. Okay. Now, the nutrients that you want to get more of in your diet would be the dietary fibers, so important for you, and then all of the vitamins and minerals. Okay. And it does tell you there that you want to compare, you want to choose foods to get 100% of your daily value or less of those bad nutrients. And you also want to compare and choose foods to get 100% of your daily value or more of those healthy nutrients like your dietary fiber and all of your vitamins and minerals. So, as that general rule of thumb, you have the 5%, 20% rule. 5% of your daily value or less of a nutrient per serving is considered low in that nutrient. 20% of your daily value or more of a nutrient per serving is considered high in that nutrient. So use that 5-20% rule. So if you look at this, it says like your saturated fat. That's something we want to reduce in our diet as much as possible. You can see based on one serving, it only represents 5% of your daily value of that harmful saturated fat in that one serving. Well, that's good. We want to keep it at 5%, if not less. Look at cholesterol. It says 0%. That's good because cholesterol, dietary cholesterol, is something that we do want to keep low. Sodium. It says sodium in one serving of this food item, it gives you 7% of your daily value of sodium. So that's close to that 5% thing. Sodium is something you want to reduce in your diet, so it's relatively good. Okay. Uh, Now, this is where, let's just say, for example, you're trying to reduce saturated fat or you're trying to reduce sodium or cholesterol. You want to make sure you're choosing and comparing those products that have a lower percentage. Okay. So let's just say if you look at dietary fiber, that is a nutrient that we want to get more of in our diet. Based on this example, in one serving, that's 14% of your daily value, which is close to that 20%, which is high, which is good because we want to get a higher percentage of those. The added sugars, remember, that's the ones that we want to get a low amount of. In one serving of this food item, it gives you 20% of your daily value, which is really high. Okay. So you want to compare and choose a product where you see that percent daily value of added sugars lower. Now, you will see here under protein, even though it lists grams per serving, they're not required to put a percentage on there unless they make a health claim on the label that this food item is high in protein. Then they're required to put the percentage. The reason they're not required to put the percentage is because people's protein needs can vary pretty widely, okay, based on activity level or not, okay? And then, of course, all your vitamins and minerals, they're required to put the percentage of daily value. Those vitamins and minerals, the higher it can get up with those percentages, the better. So again, when you're grocery shopping like Ted did, you grab that packaged food, whoop, you turn it around, look at that food label, look at the serving information, look at the calories per serving, look at those nutrients, just quickly look at that 5%, 20%, or look at the percent daily value side and use that 5 to 20% rule to help you compare and choose the foods that are best for you, making sure you're limiting the nutrients of the saturated fats, sodium, added sugars, cholesterol, trying to get more dietary fiber and vitamins and minerals. So I know that was a quick crash course in reading food labels. Does anybody have any questions related to reading a food label? Again, you can drop it in the chat. You can unmute your mic.
If someone's diabetic, it might be good for them to know that 15 grams of carbs equals 1 carb serving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's good, especially like you said, if somebody's really watching their carbs, say if they have diabetes or something like that. Yes, you can do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And also, you've heard of people out there have probably heard of net carbs. Uh, that's your total carbohydrates minus your dietary fiber uh, to give you your net carbs. If you're looking at that as well. Good. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Well, if that chat does pop up, I will grab it when it comes through. Again, now I don't know if anyone had a chance to look at this interactive nutrition facts label tool for you that I did include in that email. If you haven't, look at that because it's really good. Basically, all you do when you get to that link and you open it up, you can click on every single thing on that nutrition facts label, and it's going to pop up information specific to, say, the calories, specific to cholesterol, specific to dietary fiber, to sugars and all of that stuff, and it's going to teach you more about that. So I would definitely recommend do that. It can be very helpful for you. Okay, so that's the interactive nutrition facts label. So any questions related to food labels before we really look at the week's action steps? Okay. All right. Well, your week action steps, just like Ted gave an example a while ago, look or read food labels to help make quick and informed choices. Okay. Now, you don't have to stay there all day reading food labels, and if you don't read food labels, maybe just do just a few examples. Again, looking at those percent daily values, looking at the 5%, 20% rule, doing some comparison with similar food items, looking at the calories per serving. Remember the general rule of thumb: 40 calories or less is considered a really low calorie item. 100 calories per serving is considered moderate. Of course, 400 is considered very high. Okay, so read labels to make quick and informed choices. Maybe next week you'll have a good example for me, kind of like Ted did there. So we can talk about that. And of course, making sure you're applying all of the fundamentals every day. They're still important. Using the guide to smart food choices, working your way up to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables daily, consuming at least 64 ounces of water a day. If you're not quite at those specific goals, you keep working up. Thinking about your grains, proteins, and dairy, using those My Plate tips, controlling the portions of those, and then thinking about that activity, at least 30 to 60 minutes a day of anything that gets you moving beyond a seating or resting state. Of course, the more intense that physical activity can be and sustained, the more benefits you can get. Okay, so applying those fundamentals every day. And then next week's topic, we're going to talk about strategies to manage calories on the weekends because we get out off of our routine on weekends. That's week 6 in your program booklet, and then some strategies when you're dining out, which is week 10 in your program booklet. So we're going to talk about that next week. Of course, you have the option of the tracker. Tomorrow, I will email you the link that will be turned in next Monday if you choose to do the tracker. So, does anybody have any questions or comments for the day? And I did record this, so once I get it downloaded to YouTube in the next day or so, I will be sending this out to everybody. So, any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, Jim says if you use radishes instead of baby potatoes in stews or roast, it's a great swap. Yep. Okay, and Ed said he Googled the big burrito that he was talking about on the food label. It has 36 grams of fat. Yeah. Which would probably, and I would say out of those 36 grams of total fat, probably a majority of that is that harmful saturated fat. So that would be definitely an item that you would want to find that's a little less, closer to that 5%. Mhm. All right. Anything else? Okay. Well, if you're welcome. If you do have any questions or comments, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to me. I will challenge you though and look at a few food labels. And next week you might tell me how you made some comparison and you were able to save on some calories or reduce the harmful saturated fat, reduce the added sugars, maybe something that it increased the fiber, or something like that. Okay. Other than that, I hope you'll have a great rest of the week, and I will see you all next Monday, and you'll get about 3 minutes back into your day. Thank y'all. I gotta see that. Zero added sugars for the burrito.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.